Back to Unspoken Truth, where we break through the silence, challenge the narratives, and shine a light on the realities too often ignored by mainstream. Today, I'm honoured to introduce a guest who embodies the warrior spirit, not just in name but in action, Aaron Braithwaite, no relation to Daryl. He's a man and a purpose, resilience and transformation. He's the founder of ENDLISS Watch Co, Warrior Shed and Limitliss Apparel, three powerful platforms designed to inspire, empower and reconnect men with their inner strength and a deeper life purpose. Aaron has dedicated his life to redefining masculinity, promoting mental health and reminding men that vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. His work speaks directly to the mission of Unspoken Truth, to heal, to unite, and to rebuild a culture of mutual respect, integrity, and accountability with strong men. Aaron, welcome to the show, mate. It's a pleasure to have you here to discuss the current situation men are facing in our country. Without further ado, mate, is there anything you'd like to get off your chest before we get into these questions?
Daniel, I don't know how I can follow up after that. I appreciate the intro. Look, it's a really interesting topic. And I think the first thing I want to get off is a normal guy going through life, navigating through the complexities that life is throwing us at the moment. But the one thing I am doing within myself is finding truth within me. And we all have it. And it's having that courage to stand in that. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this conversation goes. Like I said, I'm no expert. There's no magic formula. It's a matter of just starting, which exactly what you're doing. It's starting, having that conversation, and hopefully the momentum, and I'm pretty sure it will, the momentum will follow because, you know, when people find other people that are similar to them, you know, that it's all that ripple effect and that's navigating towards, you know, the likes of yourself and what I'm doing. And it's a movement. It's a movement that's growing. And I believe, you know, the more people speak up and have the courage to speak up, the more momentum we'll get. So thanks for having me.
No, mate, thank you. But as we previously discussed too, at least we're both big enough to understand this can't happen with any one individual. This is something, like you said, we need to provoke the thought process, plant the seed, and encourage other men to, for lack of a better analogy, find your balls, stand up, stand united, and let's get this country back on track.
I agree. I agree. Let's go.
All right, mate, let's jump into this. Aaron, what do you think has happened to Australian men over the past few decades, and when did we lose our backbone?
I'm going to frame this a little bit. Let's go back to when the World War started. The brave of a brave man went to war, and that's a fact. Now, when you're preparing for war, what your drill sergeant will do is they will train you to a degree that you don't show emotion. Because if you showed emotion, not only will you die, but also your mate will die and your platoons will die. So it's not showing emotion. Now, those that survived war came back. And when they tried to not being able to express emotion, you kind of have a look at where we are generationally down the track. There's no emotional attachment. There's the emotional maturity is not there. And when you have a look at the pressure of what society has put on, it's just become this massive problem where the masculine men has been shamed in not being able to express themselves on an emotional level. So therefore, we've kind of gone back to when they came back from war, not being able to express themselves emotionally. So fast forward to where we are, then you bring in technology, you bring in, you know, the internet, and that's caused another issue, and I believe another problem, because you've got all the bots, you've got all these keyboard warriors, you've now got AI coming in because you've got all this propaganda that's been pushed out there to emasculate men, to push a narrative. And when you're criticized online for having an opinion, for they think that society's, you know, expectation on them is what they're seeing online. But we know it's bots, we know it's AI, we know it's not true, it's keyboard worrying. So it's a really interesting dynamic on where we've kind of come in the last 20 years. And then you bring in feminism as well. So yeah, there's a whole multi-layer of problems. The one thing that you said it really well at the start, that men have lost their balls. And what I mean by that is that we've lost that courage just to have a voice. Yeah. We've been pushed into a corner. You know, a lot of us were growing up as kids And our dads, our parents, be seen and not heard. Don't cry. It's like, toughen up, and you've got your mates around you, toughen up, and not being able to show emotion. So it's a really, like I said, multifaceted level of a problem that we have. But the one fundamental thing that men have forgotten is to have courage in their voice. And as soon as you find that, then a lot of the problems, I think, will start to go away.
Yeah, no, well said. And that's the sad reality. I mean, I'm 45 now, so growing up, I did hear that, don't cry about it. Stop being a girl was something that was thrown around quite regularly back in the day when I was a kid, toughen up, keep it to yourself, just deal with it, move on. But this is, as you've quite rightly pointed out, this has created this barrier where most men, especially over the age of mine and higher, where you just, I suppose, to be able to get to a point where you are, like you pointed out, you need to be vulnerable. It's not a weakness to speak your truth. It's not a weakness to have an opinion that isn't in line with everybody else's. You're entitled to have an independent thought process and not be crucified for it. So, no, well said, Aaron, well said. All right. Do you think that the modern culture is intentionally, I think I know the answer to this, but is intentionally emasculating men? Or is it a byproduct of societal change?
Yeah, I've been sitting on this question for a little while. Absolutely, it's intentional, because without strong men in society, those in power are not threatened.
Yeah.
Right. So there's an intentional aspect there. But when you look at the societal side of it, the only constant is change, and things will always change as well. Like, I've been in the fitness game nearly 30 years, and there are fundamentals that haven't changed and they're still the same, but the fitness industry looks very different to what it was even 10 years ago. So you have to be adaptive to change, and that's just society. That's just the way moving forward. Things have to change to progress. So when you have a look at where men are at, especially over the last 20 years, you've got the internet, you've got the rise of feminism, you've got a lot of females that are turning around and saying, I don't need a man. So then you've got that on the insecurities of men. You've got also that they've lost their purpose. They are unsure where their place in society is, and they just kind of fall away. But the main problem that we're facing, not only are men falling away and they're left in the dark, they're unable to express themselves, they're unable to find their purpose, and then they fall into a darkness. And sadly, we're seeing that in a reflection of the suicide stats. Like, men are just lost. So until you find, you're not going to please everyone. And I think what a lot of people have done, especially in probably the last 10 years, is that we're trying to be too much of a people pleaser. And that's an indoctrination. That's an intentional society thing, is that, you can't speak out about gays because you are homophobe. You can't speak out about immigrants because you're racist. And it's like, fuck.
Yep.
One thing people need to realize, the facts are the facts. And we need to start going back to the facts and making truth in the facts. And whatever comes to you, and my dad always told me, sticks and stones will break my bones, words will never hurt me. If we go back to that, because they're just words, and whatever your opinion of me is, I don't care, because I've said enough to myself. And until men sort of stand in that and go, there's nothing you can tell me, there's nothing you can say to me because I've already said it to myself, that's when we'll start finding strength to actually start speaking up and start speaking truth. One of my catchphrases is stop fucking lying. So as soon as we start coming from a place of truth, that's when I think we'll start to really see some momentum moving forward.
Yeah, no, exactly, mate. If every man stopped fucking lying to themselves, stepped up and had an opinion without any concern of the retaliation for a simple opinion, it'd be, you'd stand in your own self, wouldn't you? You wouldn't have to be obedient and trying to please people that aren't here to be pleased.
Well, that's such a really interesting point you make. I mean, if you have a look at the last 5 years, I was in Melbourne during the COVID era. The government did, and what the police did, is they threatened anyone for speaking out. So therefore, when you're threatened with either imprisonment, arrest, or fine, what a lot of people did is they just didn't say anything, didn't do anything. Any of the protests going on around the country, a majority of them were females.
Yeah.
A lot of men weren't speaking up. You saw a lot of the gangsters. You saw a lot of the crims. You saw a lot of the guys that were and being very silent. because of the threat of, either being arrested or being fined. And it's like, well, if that's the price you need to pay for standing in truth, standing in freedom, and speaking your mind, which is inherently was wrong. Look at where we are now. All the arrests were dropped. All the fines were dropped. So everything we were saying over the last 5 years was true. Our balls, finding our courage to actually sort of stand in there in our truth and go, okay, well, I am going to deal with whatever comes my way, but I'm standing in a truth because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And we all know the difference between right and wrong. We all know that. Deep down, inherently, we know what is right and what is wrong. You just need to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, are you actually standing in truth, or are you standing on a lie? Are you constantly living on a lie, or are you literally going to stand there, be the protector, be the provider, be the strong man that the world needs right now, or, again, be silenced?
All right. What does being a man mean to you in 2025, and how does that compare to what it meant 50 years ago?
Ooh, 50 years ago, we didn't have the internet. 50 years ago,
every man was a real man, weren't they? You didn't have a choice.
Exactly. And if we had a disagreement, knock on their door, we'd deal with it. And again, this is a multi-level thing. And one thing I'm going to look at is I'm not going to look at where society is at. I'm not going to look at like other men and other people. I'm going to look at what can you do with yourself, within yourself, to help either with that ripple effect. Because the one thing is that if you as a man and you're in a family environment, your kingdom is your family, you've got your queen, you've got your wife, you've got your kids. Like if you did everything you can to chase personal excellence, how do you think your family unit would be? Yeah. Your kids would look at you and they would mirror everything you do. From a man's perspective, if you're physically strong, that's going to help you on an emotional level. It's going to give you the courage to do the things because you feel physically strong. So when you've got the physical strength, that's not naturally going to flow into a different thought process. It's going to give you the courage to do the things and chase the things. It's going to help you find purpose. When you start looking at that and you start looking at that spiritual connection, really start getting in tune with who you are. Start listening to your inner voice, because we all have one. Whatever it is that you need to listen to, if you start listening to your guides and what your inner voice is telling you, that will give you, the courage to do the things and follow that purpose and be the strong man, be that masculine man that the world needs. And when you start looking at yourself, your family changes and people around you start looking at change, they're either going to come with you on the journey or they're going to resist. Now, you can either put focus on the people that are resisting you or put focus on the people that are joining you in the journey. It's a ripple effect. So I'm not going to look at what society's done, but I'm going to touch very quickly on society. And it all comes down to that no one now is being, no one is being held to account for any of their actions. So there's no consequence to actions, and that's a government thing. Yeah. But yet us as men can start holding people to account. Something as simple as someone parking in a disabled car parking spot when they're actually not disabled is because there's this fucking lazy of people in the world at the moment. It's a really big problem. But as a strong man, if you see someone parking in a disabled car parking spot, like doing something that it's like, come on, mate, that's just a pathetic thing to do. You will call that out. Because you're going to the gym, you're feeling strong, you're feeling physically, capable, and also that you're mentally alert and mentally aware. So until people start being called out on shitty behavior, that's when, again, we're going to see another ripple effect. And it's all about the consequences of people's actions. So the one thing I look at is, yes, you can point finger, yes, you can blame, yes, you can look at trying to get people to save you, or you can go back to working on the one thing that matters the most, and that's personal excellence.
Yeah, no, well said. And just to take it a bit further than that, mate, a lot of people, and I encourage this myself, is one random act of kindness a day, you might be putting the smile on the face of somebody that is searching for a purpose to just exist. So it's really not that hard to hold the door open for somebody. It's really not that hard to point out, you're being a lazy bastard parking in a disabled car park. You're making somebody that's genuinely disabled have to do it harder because you're a lazy prick. So, no, well said, Aaron. Well said.
Yeah.
All right, mate. When did we stop holding men accountable and start encouraging weakness? And I suppose, as you briefly touched on before, I think a lot of this stems from the lack of accountability and the keyboard warriors that, yeah, okay, they can have an opinion because they've never been faced to have to answer for the accountability or stand in front of somebody and say what they're quite happy to type about them. So
I would go back to the family unit. When you actually have a look at the distractions, and a lot of men are easily distracted with porn, with booze, with sport, internet scrolling. And when you've got a father, a man who is constantly distracted by those things, they're not present with their kids. And the easiest thing to do, and hey, I did this with my boy. The easiest thing to do to keep a kid, distracted, in a word, them the phone or throw them an iPad.
yep.
And that just causes a whole heap of other problems. So, you're disconnected from your family and disconnected from your son. So the one thing that I think we should all look at doing is being present in the moment with our family and our loved ones, like number one. Number two, I said it before that online, you've got all your online trollers, you've got all these people, these so-called soy boys that are living in their mum's basement, have never had to defend themselves, in their entire life. They were given a participation medal right through school. And that probably also goes, I'm gonna briefly touch on a little bit that when was the last time Australians had to fight for something? And we haven't ever. I think the last time was in the gold mine days.
Yeah.
Like way back in those times, like in the 1800s when they were going to put the tax up, but then all the gold miners went nut and there was a rebellion.
Yeah.
Ever since then, we've never had to fight for anything. We've always been given, we've always been saved, we've always been having a carrot dangled with us from the government, thinking that the government was going to save us. And again, we were talking about this the other day. It's no different to the frog in slowly boiling a frog. And that's where we are over the last 10 to 20 years. The indoctrination through propaganda. So the one thing I want people to look at doing is turn off the fucking news, turn off the TV. That's propaganda. So there's that. There's also the food that's trying to kill you. There's also the distractions with the porn. Porn's free for a reason. The distraction with sport. And when you have a look at the system's trying to keep you broke. It's trying to keep you unhealthy. It's trying to keep you uneducated. And when you look at all of those things and you go, fuck you to the system, and you do the complete opposite, how's the world going to look? How's your world going to look on someone? You know that, life's going to throw you a curveball, but you're the one that's going to be able to overcome it. You can turn around to your wife and your family and go, yeah, we're going through a tough time at the moment, but everything's going to be okay. I've got it covered. And when was the last time you turned around to your partner, your wife, your family and said, everything's under control, I've got this? Or you started pointing the finger and blaming. So, yeah, it's a really interesting one. But how do we get back to to being masculine, the masculine man that the world needs? First and foremost is find your voice.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the opinions because they're the minority at the moment are the loudest. Sadly, you have a look at how the government is governing. The government is governing for the minority. You just look at all the stuff that's happening in New South Wales and Victoria at the moment. So the one thing is start finding your voice. You're going to get a pushback. You're going to get criticism, but you're going to get criticism from the people that are feeding into the propaganda. You're going to get people that are opinionated and just scream and yell at you and call you an ism or a phobia or, an ist, all of those things. The one thing you need to stand in is that you can call me whatever you want, but it doesn't take away the facts. And you just got to be strong in that. You just got to be aware that, people are going to come at you. All right, cool, whatever. Come at me.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very valid point you brought up about the fact that it starts and finishes with the family unit, because once you degrade or destabilize the protector, then all of a sudden that's a very vulnerable situation. The remainder of the family is left. And I suppose exactly to be easily controlled, if you want what the government's offering, you need to do as you're told. So to separate the family, I think it all starts with that. That's where the grab for your children, the grab for future generations, and the fact that, and I hear this quite a lot, like if we went to war tomorrow, a lot of these alienated fathers I speak to say, well, why the fuck should I fight for a country that's stolen everything that I valued so much and then turn around and tell me what they've done to me is actually in my child's best interest? Like, it's a backhanded slap in the face. You're basically told to thank them for the taste that you left in the mouth with for the rest of your life. So the trauma it's deep, it's long lasting. And there's one point I do want to get across here, Aaron, is if you can't find your balls to stand up for yourself, then how the fuck can you claim that you can find your balls to stand up for your children? That's the scary reality we're looking at here. Like in 2 generations from now, nobody's going to remember you, right? But they're going to remember what we stood for and what we implemented for the future generations to be able to live a life of peace and freedom, aren't they?
100%. And look, this is not an overnight fix. It is going to take a generation or two to get back. And we are seeing the pendulum swing back. We're going to see it swing back like really hard and have a massive effect. Well, maybe that's what we need. Maybe it is that that's what we need. But the other thing as well is that, look, if we're going to be, quickly touching on government and how controlling they are, these people just want power. They want to stay in power. They want to hold on to as much power as they possibly can. And the more people that start speaking out, going on, they'll change. We've already seen that. And we've seen that through history. So the one thing, again, find that voice. Find a voice to be able to speak up and have those conversations with people that you need to have conversations with. Hold them to account. Yeah. And always come back that there's no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save you. The government's not coming to save you. Like you just said it before, what the what the system is doing, and the system is eroding men. It's emasculating them as much as possible. It is weakening the family unit. And when you've got that, it's divide and conquer within. And when you've got that divide and conquer within, they're not going to go away. And I think we're at a really pivotal point right now where that sadly it takes one person, and we can't always wait for someone to be leading from the front. You've got to have a look at that. You are the king of your kingdom. You are the man of the family, and it starts with you. It doesn't start with me looking after your family. You need to now look at what you can do to help protect your family. Don't look at external help. What can you do? Don't look at your normal 9-to-5 job. Don't look at the money that's coming in. Don't look at trying to cut back. How much? Where can you earn more money to have a life of freedom? So you're not governed by society or governed by the bureaucrats. But you and I, it always has to come back to us and what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's no I in team, is there? It's as simple as that. This is a team sport, and the sooner that genuine men, strong men, stand together and united, this shit show does stop. The curtain gets pulled back, and everybody starts to see what we know and what we're trying to educate others on, and that is, if all your friends are the sort of friends and mates that say to you, oh yes, no, you're right about 100% of every opinion you've got, then you've got the wrong friends, because you don't want these appeasing people around you. I suppose they don't want to offer a counter idea in case you might not like their opinion, so they just agree with everything you say. So if you're the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong fucking room. It's as simple as that. So, no, well said, mate. All right. Here's a good one. How do we personally fight back against the bubble wrap soft culture that's been conditioned for men to live in?
You have to not give a fuck.
Yep.
You literally just have to not give a fuck. And it's as simple as that. And when you attach someone's opinion on you on an emotional level, you're lost. And this is where you need to know who you truly are at the core. And this is you getting back to yourself, like finding who you truly are, that spiritual connection, that connection to universe, connection to source, whatever that is you want to do. Like find who you truly are. It's got nothing to do about, there's an element of purpose. And my purpose is to leave a legacy. What's my legacy? My legacy is to ensure that I am the best role model for my son. I am the person that never gave up. I'm the person that, always looked for an opportunity. I was always trying to improve myself. Like I'm 55 years old. I don't want to look like your typical 55-year-old. And I think I'm actually doing relatively well in regards to a lot of 55-year-olds that are in the country at the moment. So yes, there's an element of ego there. But at the same time, there has to be a driving factor. You've got to be able to, where's your motivation coming from? Where's your inspiration coming from? Well, my inspiration and motivation is to ensure that I don't lose myself in the chaos at the moment. And the one thing I think, that I truly look at is I look at that everyone's got an opinion. You're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to, and I actually said this the other day, that I'm not going to enter into your derangement of what you think reality is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know exactly what you're alluding to there, mate. You know, if let's break it down, because here on Unspoken, I don't sugarcoat shit very well. So when it comes to genders, you have men, you have women, and you have mental health disorders. Okay, so that's my opinion, and that's backed by fact, and it's backed by thousands of years of biology. So, you know, for anybody out there that's got a different opinion about me, about my thoughts, you're entitled to it. But if you'd like to reach out and have a constructive conversation about how you're wrong and I'm right, by all means, make contact. You know, so.
And I love that. And we go back to truth. We go back to reality. The truth of the matter is that in 100 years, if you think that you're a woman, but you're actually a man, someone's going to dig you up. They're going to see man's bones.
Yeah, exactly.
Male bones. Simple as that. Now, I'm going to, look, I love it that it's unspoken truth. Look at the laws that have just been passed in New South Wales at the moment, that anyone can change their sex on their birth certificate. So by law, a man who's a fully grown man, fully got his balls intact, fully bedded up, how is that okay? So now and the problem is that the laws are against the man for calling that up, because by law they can do it. However, there's got to be a consequence to the actions. And if we stand by and allow this shit to happen, what's the next phase? Yeah. Where are they going to go next? And it always has to come back to protecting the children. Yeah. Always got to go back to that. So at what point are we going to go, hey man, I'm just going to take on, I'm just going to cop whatever I need to cop, but I've got to look after the kids and I've got to protect the kids. If it means that you're going to get arrested for assault, hey man, I'll be happy to get arrested for assault if I find some fucking pervert and a groomer in a female change rooms. I'll be happy to take it on the chin. But at least for me, I will look back on it and go, I stood for something, because if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything.
I'm a father of 3 daughters. And I've done this, I've stood at the door, and I'll quite happily stand at the door and say, no, you're not going in there. You can wait till they come out, mate. So the way that they it is a government coercion to force us to try to doubt what we know to be truthful and factual based, and it's all just to control and dictate terms. Because if you'd have tried this shit on 50 years ago, every single bloke would have stood in the way and said, like, fuck, that's not happening.
Yep.
But now we're just so fearful of the repercussions, or as you said, we might get charged, or we're going to get threatened or fined. Well, and spot on to what you said, if you don't stand in yourself, then you stand for nothing. So that's going to eat away at you a lot more than whether you stand up and say, nah, I'm not accepting this bullshit. So, no, well done, mate. All right. Yep. How do we encourage the young men to be brave enough and have their own independent public opinion?
That's a really hard one. You've just got to be that role model. You've got to be that strong man that boys, your sons, will see you in conflict and not back down. Yeah. And that will, again, then give them a little bit of comfort. But I think at the same time also that you've got the bullies, you've got the trollers, you've got these, little fucks walking around, running around, committing all these crimes with no accountability on that. So therefore, they're just walking around like they're, indestructible. Like no one can touch them. Yeah. So that's a really big problem. It's instilling the courage in a kid. But again, a lot of kids will mirror what an adult does. So until we start seeing men actually standing in confrontation and being okay with it, that's when I think a lot of boys will start having that courage. But it's not being an arsehole. It's not being, confrontational all the time. It's choose your battles. Yep. And then it always goes back to personal excellence. It always goes back to what are you doing to better yourself?
Yeah, and I suppose, as you touched on before, lead by example. Treat others as you'd expect to be treated. Don't be egotistically aggressive, but in the same token, there is a fine line between assertion and aggression, isn't there? So, and as you've touched on too, if you've got the physical capabilities, it gives you a lot more mental strength to be able to stand in yourself and say, well, hang on, you know, if shit does go bad here, it's not me that's in trouble, mate.
We want to touch on also with boys and helping boys, like be the men that the world need. And I think it goes back to martial art, like learn a martial art, actually learn to be able to defend yourself. Yes, you can have physical strength and you can look intimidating to like the average person, but if you know that you have the confidence to defend yourself when need be, my boy went through martial arts, you know, confrontation came, he could look after himself, but he's an intimidating character. You know, he's 6'1" and he's 120 kilo.
Yeah, right.
So he's an intimidating
big boy.
Yeah, but he did martial arts. So and he's not a fighter, but when that time comes to defend himself, absolutely he can do it. And I think that's also one thing, but it's also going to teach other things. It's going to teach you discipline. It's going to teach you persistence. It's going to teach you that you'll be rewarded for hard work. So yeah, that'll be another thing that I think a lot of kids need to start looking at, some sort of martial arts defense.
No, I agree, mate. I had all my girls doing Taekwondo at one point, so
Awesome.
I 100% agree. And if nothing else, it gives you, as a parent, it gives you the confidence to know if they are found into a bad situation, you know that they can handle themselves. You know, like I always used to say to my girls, if there was an issue at school and I was asked to come down and for any reason they said, oh, your daughter's hit this person, well, I know the way she's been brought up is because this person's deserved what she's done. The retaliation was something because she was provoked. You know, she's a good kid. She's not just going to lash out at anybody. So let's look a bit deeper into this. What took place for her to think she had to resort to violence? So, yeah, no, well said, mate. Look, we're running out of time, but thank you again for your time. And I really enjoyed the interview, mate.
Absolutely make time for it. I think this is really imperative. You've got a great platform. You've got an amazing voice. You've got an incredible story yourself. And you know, we've got to be comfortable to be able to have in these conversations. So I'm all for it. You know, let's just see if we can lock something in on a regular. Absolutely make it happen.
Yeah, no, sounds good, mate. And we do, as you said, we do need strong leaders. We need blokes like you and I that are willing to say it as it is, irrespective of whatever they might throw at us. Let's be honest. We probably get a bit of negative feedback, but at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? You know, their opinions don't affect the way we see ourselves. So, you know,
absolutely. What's the like the only argument that these blue-haired little muppets and you know the society and bubble, they're only going to come at you with threats and verbal abuse because they've got no debate. So if you can go, call me whatever you want because I know it's not true, and again, you know that it's not true, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
you'll be able to get through.
Exactly. Well said, Aaron. Now, I look forward to our future conversations, mate. We will resonate with the younger audience, even the older blokes around our age group. I'm sure, you know, to see other blokes standing out there and having a public opinion might even encourage them to go, well, you know what? I can take my opinion outside the pub. If I want to have an opinion, I can go and say what I want to say, and no one has to agree with me because it's my opinion. So
exactly.